Hello again from Firefly Beach. Our last visit marked the beginning of a multi-part series. Today, we will examine some of the events that led to the fall of political Rome and how these events contributed to the rise of the Church of Rome. An important aspect of this transformation is the Roman army's persecution of early Christians, a persecution that grew in intensity through the efforts of the Roman Church and her allies. Today's presentation title is Foundations of Prophecy, From Daniel to Constantine, a Prophecy Overview. This marks the start of our study of the period from 31 AD to 312 AD. However, before embarking on this historic journey, it's essential to understand how biblical prophecy describes this era. The Bible discourse begins with Daniel 2, a prophecy that delineates the world's empires from the emergence of Babylon to the establishment of God's kingdom. Although not mentioned by name, this is the first direct reference of the Iron Kingdom of Rome in the Bible. In 605 BC, Daniel and other young men of Judah were taken to Babylon as captives. He and his peers were relocated to serve in the Babylonian administration. This was a process designed to integrate the captive people into the economy, the military, and even religious practices of the conquering nation. About a year later, the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar had his first prophetic dream. Now, when he woke up the next morning, he knew the dream was significant, but could not remember any of the details. He had experienced troubling dreams before, and each time his chosen group of counselors always came up with a skillful explanation that calmed him. But this time was different. Not only did the king demand an explanation for the dream, but he also insisted that his counselors reveal its content to him. He knew their tactics. He was convinced that they had conspired and deceived him in the past. But this time wouldn't work. He knew that they would try to stall for time.
But the king said to the astrologers, "I am serious about this. If you don't tell me what my dream was and what it means, you will be torn limb from limb, and your houses will be turned into heaps of rubble. But if you tell me what I dreamed and what the dream means, I will give you many wonderful gifts and honors. Just tell me the dream and what it means."
You can read the full story in Daniel chapter 2, verses 1 through 13. Of course, none of his counselors could tell him what he wanted to know. That is, what he needed to know. However, there was one. No one except God's servant, Daniel. Daniel was not only able to tell the king his dream, but also the meaning. He started by telling Nebuchadnezzar,
"There is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the future. Now I will tell you your dream and the visions you saw as you lay on your bed."
Daniel describes a confusing sight. A large, shiny statue of a man with a head made of fine gold. The chest and arms are silver, while the belly and the thighs are bronze. The statue's legs are made of iron, and the feet are a mixture of iron and baked clay. He then details a rock cut from a mountain, and the rock hits the feet, breaking them into pieces. Now Daniel goes on to explain the meaning of the king's dream. He tells him that you are the head of gold. It represents you, the kingdom of Babylon. And the other inferior metals represent the kingdoms that would follow his. I don't have time today to discuss all this prophecy in detail, but the Bible and history gives us the interpretation. The head of fine gold represented Babylon, followed by Medo-Persia, symbolized by the breast and arms of silver. Greece corresponds to the belly and the thighs of bronze. Lastly, the final metal, iron, represents Rome. But what about the feet and toes of iron and clay? The feet and toes symbolize the divided nations of Europe, and the vision confirms that no single power would ever rule over divided Europe. The presence of iron represents Rome's persistent and strong influence, while the clay portrays their inability to unite amid the fragility of their relationship. Signified by iron, Rome would never disappear until struck by the stone cut out without hands. But how does the transition from the Iron Empire of Rome to the divided nations of Europe happen? Daniel chapter 7 provides more details. It also illustrates a principle of Bible prophecy. That principle, repeat and enlarge. So what does this mean, repeat and enlarge? The repeat and enlarge principle explains how God introduces details in one vision and then repeats them in a future vision while adding more details for better understanding. A vision may start with an overall view, or what we would consider the big picture, as it were, and later repeat the same idea but with additional information, providing a fuller picture. This is what happens when we compare Daniel chapter 2, 7, and 8. In Daniel chapter 2 and 7, we discuss four major kingdoms. However, by the time Daniel receives the vision of chapter 8, Babylon has been conquered, and now the Medo-Persian Empire is in charge. Therefore, there is no additional information about Babylon given. In chapter 2, there was a single statue made from different metals. Each metal represented a kingdom, starting with the head of gold and progressing downward to the feet of iron and clay. Each successive metal is less valuable, but much, much stronger. In the vision of Daniel 2, God reveals not only the sequence of the nations, but also that the last kingdom of iron never fully disappears until he destroys it. Now, in chapter 7, God replaces the statue with multiple animals. This chapter features four animals, and with their substitution, God provides more information about the empires they represent. Let's examine how Daniel's description of the animals offer us further insights into each of these kingdoms in chapter 7. We'll begin with verse 1.
In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head while on his bed. Then he wrote down the dream, telling the main facts. Daniel spoke, saying, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And suddenly another beast, a second, like a bear. It was raised up on one side, and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said thus to it, Arise, devour much flesh.
Let's pause here for a minute. The second beast symbolizes Medo-Persia. A bear stands on one side and has 3 ribs in its mouth. What's that all about? The Medo-Persian Empire began with the unification of the Medes and the Persians, two distinct but closely related peoples from the Iranian plateau. The Medes initially held dominance, but as the Persians, led by Cyrus the Great, gained strength, they ultimately overtook the Median rulers. Thus, the bear rises up on one side. But what about the 3 ribs? What new information does that give us? 3 ribs in its mouth symbolize the 3 major conquests of Babylon, Lydia, and Egypt, which helped to establish its dominance. This additional detail confirms the identification of Medo-Persia as that second beast. Now let's pick back up with verse 6.
After this I looked, and there was another, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there, in this horn, were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words.
But something about the 4th beast caught Daniel's attention. It was that little horn. This beast, the 4th beast, symbolizes Rome. In the vision of chapter 2, God had shown that Rome would continue to hold power and influence even after it was divided. And this little horn power would be used to accomplish this. In verse 19 of the same chapter, Daniel expresses a desire to understand the exact meaning of the 4th beast, especially the little horn that had eyes and a mouth uttering boast, which grew larger.
The 4th beast shall be a 4th kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, trample it, and break it in pieces. The 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall rise after them. He shall be different from the first ones, and shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time and times and half a time.
For centuries, the city of Rome served as the center of the empire. Just as Rome and its empire weren't built in a day, they weren't destroyed in one either. Now, to make it easier to govern and to defend, in 285 AD, Emperor Diocletian divided the empire into eastern and western halves. The eastern part was later known as the Byzantine Empire. With the seat of power shifting from the city of Rome to major cities like Constantinople, Alexandria, and Antioch, governance became more challenging. This resulted in political and social instability. It led to revolts and incursions from foreign tribes. The split was an omen of the eventual demise of the empire that was known as the Western Empire. And over the next 50 years, the city of Rome and the Western Empire were overrun by Germanic tribes that established their own kingdoms throughout Europe. These divisions played a crucial role in reshaping medieval Europe. Here are the 10 kingdoms, or horns, that emerged. The Alemanni were German, Franks, France, Burgundians, Switzerland, Sueve, Portugal, Visigoths, Spain, Lombards, Central Europe, Anglo-Saxon, England, Ostrogoths, Italy, Heruli, Balkans, and the Vandals, North Africa. According to Daniel chapter 7, a new type of ruler would replace 3 of the tribes that would overrun Western Rome. With help from Justinian I's military forces, the Ostrogoths, Heruli, and Vandals were completely eliminated by the year 538. It was mainly through General Belisarius' military campaigns that the Roman Church's political influence grew stronger. By defeating the Ostrogoths and reclaiming Rome, Justinian's papal edict of 533 solidified Pope Agapetus's role as the leader of the churches of both the Western and Eastern Empire. This established the Pope's authority over all the bishops of the church. Up until then, the Bishop of Rome was considered an equal among peers. It also gave the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, the political control over the entire city of Rome. This led to the rise of the religious political power that would become stronger and persecute God's people. Let's see how Daniel describes this.
The 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall rise after them. He shall be different from the first ones, and shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time and times and half a time.
Kings Clovis and Justinian I of the Eastern Byzantine Empire, being Orthodox Christians, had profound theological differences with the Arian occupiers of Rome. The Arian belief of Jesus not being co-eternal with God the Father led them to loan their armies to 3 successive popes to completely destroy the Ostrogoths, Heruli, and Vandals. In contrast to the other 7 powers, these 3 faced total obliteration and were succeeded by the Holy Roman Empire, with the Pope as the head. In the rest of this video series, we will explore key locations of Satan's attack on God's people and on his church. We will emphasize the heroes of the battle and examine significant events in the fight to preserve God's truth. In parts 2 to 4 of Foundations of Prophecy, we will visit the city of Rome. There we will explore the places where the government sacrificed Christians either out of anger or just for the entertainment of its citizens. While there we'll also look at some of the sights and the ways that the little horn speaks pompous words against the Most High and intends to change times and laws. We'll examine the influence that King Constantine had on early Christianity and how he helped blur the line between pagan and Christian practices. Now, I realize we've covered a lot of material in today's video, and because of time constraints, we had to leave a lot of material out. Many of the details were left undiscussed. This might have left you with some unanswered questions. Perhaps it's about the nations symbolized by the animals and the beasts of Daniel chapter 7, or maybe about some other detail. We're truly sorry to leave you with those questions. That's not our intention. We don't want you to accept anything just because we say it. And sometimes answering one question raises others. That's what happens when you really study the Bible. If that's you, I encourage you to contact us at the address on the screen, and we can offer you a more complete and a more systematic way to study the topics that we discussed today. And I also want to encourage you to keep watching as we study together. And join us next time for Foundations of Prophecy, Ancient Rome. And until then, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Let your gentleness be made known to all men. The Lord is at hand. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds through Christ Jesus. And until then, God give you a blessed week.